Welcome you. We're taking a fascinating plunge today into some really powerful excerpts from Lauren Oliver's Delirium. We're going to be right there with the character named Alex as he navigates some pretty intense
And
experiences.
these aren't just, surface level story bits.
Yeah.
What we have here are these deeply personal reflections from Alex, almost like snapshots from a world really profoundly marked by this cataclysmic event, this blitz. We're getting a really raw look inside his emotional world within that reality.
Exactly. So through Alex's eyes, we're going to be exploring themes of death and loss and this compelling search he's on in what sounds like a fundamentally fractured world. Our aim in this deep dive isn't just to retell what happens exactly, but to really unpack what Alex is grappling with. We want to understand what these memories and experiences reveal about the instinct to survive, how we hold on to fragments of the past, and maybe most profoundly about that persistent spark of hope even when circumstances seem utterly desolate. Now, just a heads up, some of Alex's recollections, they'll definitely lead us to some surprising and potentially unsettling places.
Yeah, right away, Alex throws us into this really complex idea that the act of dying wasn't as agonizing as the experience of returning to life. And he immediately grounds this in this incredibly vivid memory of the gallery back in Rhode Island. Can you sort of paint that scene for us?
Okay, yeah, so picture this.
Uh,
A long covered walkway, kind of connecting the harbor area to the old town square. Apparently, there are still unexploded bombs lodged in the cobblestones. Some kid, this daredevil named Zero, even used to challenge Alex to, step on them.
Right.
Crazy. But beyond that sort of lingering danger, the gallery is lined with these deserted tourist shops, right? Remnants of a time before this blitz. Places with these almost nostalgic names like Lick and Swirl Ice Cream, Benjamin's Pizza, the arcade, stuff like that. The storefront windows are gone, probably shattered during, the chaos and looting after whatever happened.
And amidst all this decay and abandonment, there are still pieces of art hanging on the walls.
Mm.
That's a really striking detail, isn't it?
It's bizarre, almost surreal, yeah. Paintings showing tourists in bright, cheerful clothes, peaceful beach scenes bathed in all kinds of light. And this one painting in particular of a boy and a girl on the beach. They're standing near each other, but not really interacting, not even looking at each other, just sort of gazing out at the water. Alex mentions he always liked that one. Like to imagine they shared some, I don't know, unspoken secret.
This memory of the gallery, this almost dreamlike revisiting after his death, it's so richly layered. The shops in his memory are repaired, seemingly back to normal, yet there's this silent, accusing crowd behind the glass pressing their hands against the windows. What are some of the potential interpretations of this recurring gallery image and Alex's feelings of shrinking and being overwhelmed?
That's a great question. It feels like this repaired gallery juxtaposed with the silent, judging figures.
Hmm.
It maybe represents a past that's both gone and yet stubbornly present. Maybe it's the weight of expectations or the feeling of, not measuring up to a life that was lost.
Hmm.
And as he tries to escape towards the ocean, this feeling of shrinking, of becoming insignificant, it only intensifies as the gallery looms larger. It's as if the closer he gets to some kind of peace or resolution represented by the ocean, the more the past, this accusing memory, tries to pull him back, culminating in this violent, almost rebirth experience. It's a powerful metaphor for the difficulty of truly moving on from trauma, isn't it?
It really is.
He even expresses this desire to, die again, highlighting the immense pain of re-engaging with life.
It really does set a very heavy tone, underscoring that idea that trauma isn't just about the event itself, but the lingering psychological weight and the feeling of being judged by a past you can't escape. And then we transition to another memory from his childhood, this time when he was 12, and he set fire to an abandoned farmhouse. It's a stark shift, but perhaps we start to see some of the roots of Alex's inner turmoil here.
Exactly. He recounts this almost methodical progression, starting small, playing with matchboxes, setting fire to piles of leaves, then escalating to a locked shed. It's almost clinical, his detached observation of the flames, that unsettling numbness he describes feeling as he watches these small acts of destruction.
Yeah, detached is the word.
It makes you wonder about those touchstones in our own lives, those memories we hold on to when facing difficult times, and how different those might be from someone who finds a strange comfort in, witnessing destruction.
He just sits there and watches the firefighters arrive, the neighbors gathering, until the shed is completely consumed. Just a pile of charred remains and melted plastic. He can't even bring himself to get up. Describes his legs as feeling numb. It's definitely disturbing to see this pattern emerging so early, this detached observation. It can sometimes be a Dissociative response to overwhelming stress, a way the mind tries to cope.
And then the farmhouse incident. The deliberate act of soaking rags in kerosene, the detail of the Bic lighter with smiley faces, that almost childish element feels so jarringly out of place with the act itself.
Totally jarring.
He seems to recognize immediately that it's a mistake, that this fire is different. The house is engulfed so quickly, swallowing the light, the heat distorting the air. It's almost as if destruction becomes a way for young Alex to exert some control in a world where he feels powerless. A pattern that unfortunately seems to resurface in the crypts, though directed inward then.
And the smell, the thought that there might have been dead animals inside adds another layer of, well, grimness. But it's the sound that really stays with him. The wood cracking and splitting, each splinter audibly burning. He describes it as the house screaming. But then when the roof finally collapses, there's no sound. Or maybe he's just overwhelmed by the smoke filling his lungs and the pounding in his head as he runs.
Yeah.
He even takes the step of calling the fire department from a payphone, disguising his voice. It further highlights the weight of what he did.
What's particularly striking is how he later connects this memory to his time in the crypts, this recurring sensation of being not more dead without Lena, like
Sure.
being burning alive internally. What connections can we draw between Alex's childhood fascination with fire and his later experiences of emotional distress and confinement?
Well, it seems that this imagery of fire and destruction becomes deeply intertwined with his emotional landscape. The outward act of setting fires in his youth might be a manifestation of an inner turmoil or a way of processing intense feelings he didn't yet have the capacity to understand or manage. Later in the crypts, this external destructive force is internalized, becoming a metaphor for the pain and despair he experiences, particularly in Lena's absence. It's like the destructive element has become this recurring motif in his life, linked to periods of intense emotional distress and a feeling of being, well, consumed.
Absolutely. And speaking of the crypts, he deliberately avoids going into great detail about his experiences there. Imagine it, then imagine worse. It's a very stark and effective way of conveying the unimaginable horrors he endured.
He does offer us some harrowing glimpses, though. The cruelty inflicted by Roman, this particularly sadistic guard extinguishing cigarettes on his tongue, cutting his eyelids, oof, and Alex's internal reaction, these intense fantasies of revenge. It paints a brutal picture.
But he suggests that even the physical torture wasn't the most agonizing part. It was his cell itself. This old cell he had once shared with Lena, covered with the word love carved into the stone. They had since repaired the hole in the wall, reinforced it with steel bars, but he could still perceive the outside world, smell the rain, hear the nearby river, see the snow on the trees just beyond his reach.
That sensory deprivation, while being so close to freedom, to the sounds and smells of the outside world, it's a particularly insidious form of torment. He uses that incredibly powerful analogy of being on the wrong side of the fence. So near, yet completely, utterly trapped. It really emphasizes the profound psychological toll.
Yeah, totally. Despite enduring all of this, he somehow manages to recover physically. He doesn't even claim to understand how, doesn't say he consciously willed it. He simply begins to heal. And then he starts moving around at night, driven by this primal need to simply be, not even yet contemplating escape or even thinking about Lena, really. It's just a fundamental instinct to exist, to occupy space.
And it's during this period of slow, almost unconscious recovery, the fragments of his past begin to resurface. These fleeting memories of his childhood in Rhode Island. The gallery reappearing, the distinct smell of low tide, Flick in his fishing boat, and the memory of that first pink trout, Brent's injured fingers, the faces of lost friends like Dirk, Mel, and Toady. These are almost idyllic, aren't they? Yeah. In stark contrast to the brutal reality of his present.
They really are. These small, vivid snapshots of a life that existed before. And then the jarring transition to his arrival in Portland, the bewildering normalcy of supermarkets overflowing with food he'd never seen, trash cans filled with discarded items that seemed incredibly valuable to him, and all these rigid, seemingly arbitrary rules governing everyday life. It must have felt utterly alien, a world operating on a completely different set of assumptions.
And he openly admits that he's consciously pushing away the memories of her. This deliberate act of avoidance creates such a strong sense of anticipation for us, doesn't it? We understand that this person, her, is central to his entire experience, to his deepest pain, and perhaps ultimately to his fragile hope.
It absolutely does. And then finally she breaks through. Lena, He focuses on these incredibly specific, intimate details. A particular birthmark, her habit of biting her nails, her eyes that held a kind of promise, her pale and soft and beautiful belly, the small, dark hollow of her navel.
Wow.
He's almost overwhelmed by these resurfacing memories, almost driven to madness by the gnawing uncertainty of her fate. He tries to convince himself that she's alive and perhaps even happy without him. But this persistent, almost involuntary hope keeps resurfacing. It's that classic struggle, isn't it? Wanting the best for someone you love, even if it means they're not with you, but also desperately needing them to still be a part of your world.
It is. And then the seemingly impossible occurs, the explosions at the crypts in January.
This becomes the unexpected catalyst for his escape. He's jolted awake by these violent explosions, the alarms momentarily blare, then abruptly fall silent, then sudden and complete loss of power. Chaos immediately erupts, screams echoing through the darkness, the frantic sound of footsteps, prisoners desperately banging on their cell walls. He instinctively understands that this is a fight for freedom, a moment of opportunity amidst the destruction.
He has this almost primal, gut-level understanding of the situation. Compares it to that familiar feeling he used to get when something was amiss during a job, like sensing a hidden cop or a bad contact. He just knew. And we learned that in the lower wings, a significant number of cell doors, 200 of them sprang open due to some kind of electrical malfunction.
But not theirs. Their entire wing, Wing 6, remains locked down. He's trapped, banging and screaming along with everyone else, feeling utterly abandoned. And then a sliver of hope in the darkness, a beam of flashlight, approaching footsteps, and finally, the screech of his cell door opening. It's Kyle, this member of the resistance he'd encountered at a few meetings, someone he openly admits he never particularly liked.
The description of Kyle in that moment is so powerful, all his usual annoying traits become completely irrelevant. Alex sees him purely as the key to his liberation. At that moment, I could have kissed him. And then the sheer pandemonium of the escape itself, disorienting flashing lights, the sounds of prisoners and guards locked in desperate combat, bodies strewn across the floor.
Amidst this chaos, his mind is still working pragmatically. He remembers the service entrance located near the laundry. He even witnesses a woman in a hospital gown striking a police officer with a pen, and his internal reaction is a simple, "good for her." Then the overwhelming assault of tear gas, the burning sensation in his eyes and throat. He pushes through the throng of escaping prisoners to reach the laundry area, his own well-being secondary to the thought of Lena. That line, I was thinking of her too, speaks volumes about his driving motivation.
It's such a telling line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even in this desperate life-or-death struggle for his own freedom, his thoughts are still consumed by her. And then, the claustrophobic descent down the narrow laundry chute, and finally the arrival in the dark, pungent air of the laundry room.
And just like that, he's on the outside. He locates the service door, a door he knows the staff habitually leave unalarmed for their sneaky smoke breaks. And then he's free, out in the night, instinctively heading towards the river, towards the possibility of a new beginning.
Following this incredibly intense and visceral escape sequence, he shifts back to these deeply personal and tender details of Lena, this catalog of affection. It's a striking and poignant contrast to the violence and chaos we've just experienced.
It's truly beautiful, isn't it? These small, intimate things he loved about her. The smattering of freckles across her nose, her nervous habit of biting her lip, the way she wore her ponytail, the unique way she ran, the comforting way she fit against his chest, her specific scent, the gentle touch of her hand, her smile that always seemed to hold a secret, and these shared, almost private moments that made up Scrabble words they'd create, like hidden, groff, quaw. The silly incident with the burped alphabet, the way she would look at him as if he possessed some power to save her.
And then comes this incredibly poignant revelation. His own secret was that, in reality, she was the one who had saved him. It completely flips the dynamic of their relationship as we might have perceived it.
Yeah, it really does. After his daring escape, Alex makes his way back to the old clearing in the wilds, that significant place that holds so many shared memories with Lena. It's a difficult and solitary journey, marked by the biting cold and the harsh sun. He notices the distinct absence of other escapees, a detail that is later explained by the fact that the Portland incidents were relatively small and largely unsuccessful operation, it seems. Most were captured.
Right. And when he finally reaches the clearing, he finds it utterly devastated. Evidence of fire damage everywhere, the trees blackened and twisted like accusing fingers, and clear signs of bombing scattered metal fragments, melted plastic, shards of broken glass. The campers, once symbols of their shared refuge, are ruined. And his old home with Lena, the very center of their world, is simply poof, gone. It's a real emotional blow, isn't it? This tangible representation of their past, completely erased.
It is a gut punch. And then he's suddenly confronted by Rogers, this gaunt and wary survivor. Rogers is understandably suspicious of Alex at first, his appearance clearly marked by hardship.
But Alex has the undeniable proof of his escape, the tattooed identification number from the crypts. And Rogers fills him in on the grim realities of the outside world, the intensified crackdowns, the constant surveillance from airplanes, the threat of bombs, all fueled by this pervasive fear surrounding the invalids residing in Zombieland.
Alex's immediate and desperate concern is for the fate of anyone who might have been in the clearing, and of course, specifically for Lena. Roger's information is vague, offering only a faint glimmer of hope. He mentions that some individuals did manage to escape south, presumably to join the resistance. They are eventually joined by other scattered survivors, but tragically, Kyle, the one who risked everything to help Alex escape, is never seen again, presumed dead.
So sad. With the clearing destroyed and the ever-present danger, the group makes the difficult decision to head south. For Alex, his sole and unwavering motivation is the hope of finding Lena. It's a small, struggling collective of survivors, and they even suffer another loss when Greg, unable to cope with the newfound freedom, seemingly returns to the confines of the crypts. Institutionalized, I think, is the term used.
Yeah, couldn't adapt. But as their arduous journey takes them into Connecticut, the arrival of spring brings a subtle sense of renewal to the bleak landscape. They experience small victories in their constant search for food, small signs of life persisting in this broken world, and then they stumble upon this ruined strip mall, another desolate location that eerily echoes that initial haunting memory of the gallery.
And it's within the debris and decay of this abandoned commercial space that they encounter the traveling merchant. And it's there, amongst the collection of mundane trinkets, that Alex spots a turquoise ring on a delicate silver chain, almost hidden within a pile of cheap, forgotten jewelry. He recognizes it instantly. It's Lena's. What does this tangible link to Lena tell us about the human need to hold on to hope through physical objects, even in the face of immense uncertainty?
It's such a seemingly insignificant object, yet it carries such immense emotional weight for him. He's flooded with memories of Lena wearing it, those small, intimate moments, taking it off to kiss the nape of her neck, fumbling with the tiny clasp. It's a concrete link to her existence, a whisper of the past and a desolate present.
His interaction with the merchant is so fraught with unspoken tension. He's desperately trying to maintain a facade of calm indifference while being consumed by the need for information. The merchant's details are fragmented but significant. He acquired the ring from a girl named Raven with dark hair who was traveling south with the group approximately a year prior and traded it for a test.
Even though the merchant's description of Raven doesn't perfectly align with Alex's image of Lena, the crucial fact that this deeply personal item is now in the possession of someone who was heading south a year ago ignites a powerful spark of hope. Maybe Lena did survive the escape, made it south, and traded the ring for something essential. This single piece of information becomes his immediate and all-consuming goal to find White Plains, the location the merchant mentioned.
Rogers, demonstrating the quiet bonds forged through shared trauma, provides Alex with the necessary supplies for this uncertain journey. And Alex grapples with this internal conflict, this understanding of the deceptive allure of Zombieland, a world devoid of love and its inherent pain, what he calls delirium amoris nervosum, the disease of love.
But he firmly rejects that notion, doesn't he? He poses this rhetorical question about choosing the cold stillness of snow over the vibrant richness of summer. It's a powerful reaffirmation of the immeasurable value of what he's searching for, the enduring significance of love, despite the potential for heartbreak.
And then he confronts his past actions, the lies he's told Lena, the things he now feels compelled to reveal to her, the killing of old Hicks, the fear he masked as bravery, and the more recent deaths of the two regulators and Roman.
The encounter with the dying Roman is particularly significant, isn't it? Alex's act of mercy, ending Roman's suffering, and the connection he makes to the memory of the injured horse. It highlights the burden of these violent acts and his deep need for Lena's understanding and perhaps even forgiveness. His apology to her, even though she's not there.
So through these excerpts, we've journeyed alongside Alex through his haunting and vivid memories, witnessed his primal survival instincts manifesting in acts of violence, and experienced the fragile yet powerful resurgence of hope, all ignited by this single tangible clue, the turquoise ring.
That ring truly becomes this incredibly potent symbol, doesn't it? It embodies both the agonizing possibility of Lena's loss and the equally compelling possibility that she is still out there somewhere.
Which brings us to you, our listener. In a world stripped bare and filled with uncertainty like Alex's, What tangible reminders of connection, of hope, would you cling to? What lengths would you be willing to go to in their relentless pursuit? It really compels us to consider the profound resilience of the human spirit in the face of profound loss and the enduring power of love, even in its physical absence.
It certainly does. And these powerful excerpts leave us with this lingering sense that Alex's journey and the full weight of his experiences continue far beyond these recounted memories.